updates on the Brian Robinson trade situation, which teams are calling the Commanders about their former third-round draft pick, Jayden Daniels identifies his weaknesses, and Terry McLaurin's contract situation. Is a resolution close or just as far away as ever? Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Full Command Show. My name is Grant Mitchell, and we are here to talk about everything involving the Washington Commanders. I did not expect to be putting out a second news video today on a game day before the game even occurs, but lo and behold, here we are. In my video earlier today, I did report or share reports that Brian Robinson Jr. could be on the trade block as the team allegedly looks to move on from him, transition to Ja'Cory Crosky-Merritt, make him the running back one of the future, or running back 1.5, draft a new guy in the next year, in next year's draft, and they split the carries moving forward. We do have an awful lot to talk about on this show, and it is game day, which means I'm on the final hours of trying to get to my goal of 1,500 subscribers. So if you guys are new here or you're a returning viewer who has not clicked that subscribe button, go ahead and do me the favor and do so. I do not take it lightly. I appreciate all of the support. As we go through here, make sure you go to the comment section, leave me your thoughts on everything that I say here, and hit the like button. That is the number one way to support me and the channel and the content. And this is Grant from about 15 minutes in the future from where you are in the video right now. Now, look, I just finished recording this. I hopped off to edit and upload the video. And as I did, I saw there have been new updates on the Brian Robinson Jr. front. Real quick for me, then we'll get back to the full video. According to Lake Lewis Jr., things are moving quickly on the BRob front. Per those close to the situation, he will not play tonight against the Bengals. It was mutually agreed. Mutually. Key word there. He is in on his future being somewhere else than Washington, D.C. I can say I didn't see this coming. That is according to Lake Lewis Jr., an NFL insider and TV analyst. You can find him at the Lake Lewis Jr. show, on YouTube. So back to the full video right now. So as I was reading some comments in my video from earlier today, I had mentioned during the video that I expected BRob to come to the table and ask for about $10 million average annual value on his next contract. A couple people in the comments are saying, where did you get that from? Did you just totally make that up? And that's my fault for not addressing where that number came from. So first, it is an estimate, which I did make clear, that not being reported anywhere. That was just my guess. The guess was based on Over the Cap's valuation. They do some great stuff with all the financials that go into the football world. They estimate that BRob has a current average annual value in the market of about $8.3 million. So $8.3 million per year on his contract. Recognizing the salary cap is going to go up next season, as it always does, and also recognizing that agents will ask for more than fair value so that they can be bargained down and meet somewhere in the middle, which should theoretically be right about fair market value. That's where that $10 million number came from. So that's just my guess on what he'll come to the table with. He's making $3.5 million this year. This is the final year of his rookie contract, and he's trying to secure his big payday because oftentimes for running backs, a second big payday doesn't come because by 29-30, they're kind of like, the meme of Andy from Toy Story where he's throwing the toys and it's like, I don't want to play with you anymore. It's kind of like that. Once you get 29-30, the NFL, if you're not Derrick Henry, they mostly move on from you. So I want to pick up where I left off right there, talking about that whole situation. This is a quote from Team 980 radio host Chris Russell, who said, quote, "They, being the Commanders, they have been out on Brian Robinson since down the stretch before the Detroit playoff game. They were not happy with his aggression, his timid reading of his keys getting uphill." Excuse me. I believe that I got auto-corrected, and it should have said reading, but it said reasons. That tripped me up a little bit. Let's go ahead and let's take a look at Brian Robinson's game log to see what he was doing down the stretch last year. Because as the year did go on and the Commanders faced those tougher opponents, it did become more clear that he was not going to be the guy for the long term. So if we pick up in week 16 against the Eagles, that's the game the Commanders beat the Eagles 36-33, Jayden Daniels to Jamison Crowder in the back of the end zone. BRob in that game had 10 carries for 24 yards. Then you get the Falcons game. He goes 13 carries for 60 yards. Week 18, he doesn't play much. Most of the first string offense didn't. In the first playoff game, 10 carries for 16 yards against the Buccaneers, 1.6 yards per carry. Against the Lions, he did have a solid game, but for that to be the standout game, listen to these numbers. 15 carries for 77 yards, 5.1 yards per carry. 2 touchdowns, give it to him, both around the goal line. But for 5.1 yards per carry to be like your super standout, and those 77 yards to be his most since this would be week 12 or week 13 against the Titans when he had his third 100-yard rushing game of the season. That's definitely a bad sign. And then to finish the season against the Eagles in the championship game, 11 carries for 36 yards, that being 3.3 yards per carry. I talked earlier in my video today about how against teams with winning records, BRob averaged about 41 yards per game, 3.2 yards per carry. I want to add some more analysis to this. Really, it's not analysis. It's just simple statistics. But I talked about some different measures like explosive running rate and all that stuff this morning. Now I want to take a look at DVOA, which essentially measures a team or player's efficiency by comparing their performance on a given play to the league average. This is based in a percentage ranking. And again, it's going to reflect how effective or ineffective was a player relative to the average. So the Commanders' most effective running back, ironically, it was Chris Rodriguez at 34.2%. Now, I will say Chris Rodriguez wasn't heavily utilized in situations unless the Commanders were already ahead in the game or maybe playing inferior opponents. So it does make sense. He's not going against the number ones of the best teams in the league. So it makes sense that he would be high up there. But Chris Rodriguez, 34.2%. Jeremy McNichols, 22.7%. Austin Ekeler, 15.3%. Brian Robinson Jr., negative 4.2%. So performing worse than what would be expected by the league average player. And I do feel as if that is a pretty fair reflection of him. One of the big metrics that stood out from my video earlier was he was 44th of 50 in carries going for 1 or fewer yards. I think 34% of his carries went for 1, 0, or negative yards. And that in some ways does tell the story of the Commanders' offense, because it did feel like Jayden Daniels was being asked to work a lot of miracles. There were a lot of fourth down conversions, and you know why you have to go for it on fourth down, because your 1st and 10 becomes 2nd and 10 or 2nd and 9. You don't get forward progress, so you need that extra down. So while numbers can be misleading at times, and I'm not trying to bag on BRob, don't get me wrong, I think in the right system with another quicker, more explosive running back next to him, he could shine in his role. But can he shine as the running back 1 on a team, especially a team with Super Bowl aspirations like the Commanders? I don't think he is that guy. And that's what you're seeing from the Commanders looking to move on to from him. Whether he does ask for $10 million, whether it's 8.3, like over the cap says his value is, whether it's 7, him making $3.5 million on his rookie contract right now feels like the max the Commanders are going to be willing to pay for somebody of his quality. And you're seeing that from them putting these feelers out around the league. Now, which teams are calling the Commanders and asking about acquiring BRob? According to Polymarket Football, which is a affiliate page of Polymarket and Polymarket Sports, which is a prediction trading platform. I'm going to be honest right here. Polymarket Football does they do some clickbait, they do some rage bait, engagement, trolling type stuff. So I'm not in any shape or form saying that they are the most credible authority that you will find. However, they do also share real reports from around the league. So it's almost incumbent upon you, or in this case me, to use my judgment and try to figure out what is a troll, what's fake, or what's an actual report. In this situation, just from how it was written, in the timing of it and everything, I think that these are real rumors. The validity behind them, I can't tell you. I'm not in the office with Adam Peters. I'm not on the call with him. But they say, according to Polymarket Football, the Bears and the Saints are 2 teams who called about acquiring BRob. In my video this morning, I said there are 3 teams that stand out to me as potential suitors. The Bears were the first team I mentioned. I also had the Cowboys and the 49ers in there. Ben Johnson, we just saw him coming from Detroit, where he had the split back system with David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs. They don't have players of that caliber up there in Chicago. They do have DeAndre Swift, but DeAndre Swift was traded by the Lions when Ben Johnson was his offensive coordinator, so he might not want him around. And then they've got Roschon Johnson as the other guy. So can you bring in BRob to be that David Montgomery style of player? I think it actually works if they're able to create the system that Ben Johnson wants in Chicago. I could see him filling that role. So it does make sense why they would be calling about him. Now, of course, he is still on the roster. There is nothing super concrete with the progress of these trade talks, but it does seem as if he's available, and his usage, along with Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt's usage in this preseason game tonight, will play a very large role in showing us what does the team actually feel about both players and what are their plans for both of them. Let's move on over and let's talk about Terry McLaurin here. A couple of updates and conflicting reports. There's a reason that I'm not in the title or the thumbnail of this video. I'm not going to say something like deal close, deal collapsed, anything like that, because we're on two opposite ends of the spectrum here. So on one hand, you've got NFL.com insider Ian Rapoport going on the Pat McAfee show saying, my sense is they want to pay him around or a little below $30 million per year. I think they're trying to do it. I think they are in all-in mode. On the same day, this morning, ESPN's Adam Schefter goes on Get Up, says that it's status quo between Terry McLaurin and the Commanders, which means they are not close to a deal. This is according to him. He says, I think Terry McLaurin continues to look for a deal north of what DK Metcalf got in Pittsburgh, which is $33 million per year. The Commanders are considerably lower. Washington has been unwilling to budge. Terry McLaurin has been unwilling to budge. There's no sign a deal is close. So the full clip from Ian Rapoport basically said that, let's just guess the Commanders are at $28.5 million and Terry's at 32. Can a deal get worked out for 30? He thinks so. That was the clip. Then you've got Schefter saying the Commanders are not close. We'd heard that they'd been as low as like 24, 25 million a year. Apparently, according to what he says, Terry still wants more than DK, which would put him the third highest receiver in the NFL. And I even reported on someone else. There was another, I wish I could remember his name. There was another insider who said 2 days ago that Terry's opening offer was likely 35 million or more. So are him and our buddy Baker and Terry still holding on to that right now? Nobody knows what's going on with this situation. And I think that's the biggest takeaway here. So what I'm going to invoke moving forward on this channel is we're not going to talk in absolutes. Not that I have, or not that many people have, but we're going to avoid all absolutes when talking about this McLaurin situation. And just like I put out my video talking about how the Commanders would approach their week one game plan against the Giants, how they go about beating them, I did not include Terry in any of my game planning because for now, I'm just going to assume that he's not on the roster. There was reason to believe that Schefter being in the building and the Commanders activating him off of PUP meant that a deal was closer. All the reports came out and said, nope, that's not the case. They're not any closer than they were before. This is just par for the course with the situation. And it truly seems as if nobody knows. And I said this before, I commend the Commanders for not allowing any leaks to get out of the building because that is what you want from a championship organization. But it does just leave a massive cloud of uncertainty. So as we're watching the preseason game tonight against the Bengals, a Bengals defense that is awful, I'm going to be having my eyes trained on Jalen Lane and Luke McCaffrey and Deebo Samuel, not Michael Strachan, Michael Gallup and Chris Moore, Ja'Cory Brooks, who can make contested catches, who can go up and get jump balls, who's able to get open, who can beat man coverage. Because right now, Terry's not in the picture. And that's something that as fans, we have to come to terms with. Let's go on over and let's talk about potential trade targets here, either for BRob or for McLaurin. The Bengals are currently fielding offers for Trey Hendrickson. Now, this is the thing. I have no reason to believe the Bengals would want to trade Trey Hendrickson for Terry McLaurin, seeing as they have Jamar Chase and they just paid T. Higgins. Would they be interested in BRob? Sure, but that would only bring the draft piece of it, the draft capital piece of it down. That's not a straight up trade, 1-for-1 in any shape. You're going to need some other day one, day two picks in there. Now, with that being said, I saw earlier today somewhere on Twitter, just some random account said that the last time that a defensive player aged 30 or older was traded for a first round draft pick was, I believe, 1994. I believe that was the last time. And we might need to fact check that because I certainly didn't. But if it is true, that's pretty crazy. And it's also an indication that Trey Hendrickson doesn't have to go for a first. So we'll see how that plays out. Also saw reports that the Eagles are calling about Trey Hendrickson. It makes sense. They are a little thin on the edge, as weird as that sounds after seeing what they just did in the Super Bowl. But hopefully Hopefully the Eagles don't get their hands on him, because I thought the Commanders might have a level of interest in John Mechie. I was having a discussion with someone in the comments about that on a previous video, and they were spot on. I love their proposal. Words are hard today. The Eagles swept in and they got Mechie, and now they might be getting Hendrickson too. We'll see what happens there. Bigger news, the Patriots executive VP of personnel, Elliot Wolf, today at a press conference said that the Patriots are willing to trade a first or a second round pick to acquire a star player if it's in the best interest of their team. The Patriots have been the clubhouse leader in perceived likelihood to actually make a trade for Terry McLaurin. They also lead the NFL in cap space, so they could sign or re-sign him and get him on a new deal that's agreeable with him. And let's think about it here. The Commanders used Terry to help bring Jayden out of his shell and get him up to speed in the NFL game and help him develop by making him comfortable. The Patriots need to do the exact same thing. Now, you have Stephon Diggs there, but Stephon Diggs at this stage of his career is not as good of a player as Terry McLaurin is. He's also not anywhere close to the leader that McLaurin is. So it would make sense for the Patriots from a developmental standpoint and with their cap space to actually go ahead and make this move. And their VP of personnel has come out and said, yeah, we got the assets that we're willing to part ways with. So definitely something to keep an eye on there, because again, the Patriots have been the team most linked to trading for Terry McLaurin. To close out the video today, just a very quick one. Jayden Daniels was talking about his self-scouting, meaning his evaluation of himself during the offseason, what he worked on. And he said, quote, more accurate, can throw farther for sure. And then there's the velocity. So if I need to let one rip so defenders aren't able to pick the ball off because of how fast the ball is traveling. It all ties into that. Jayden and the starters are expected to get 2 to 3 series in the game tonight against the Bengals. There are some notable admissions. Terry McLaurin, Laramie Tunsil, Brandon Coleman, Sam Cosmi, Bobby Wagner, Zach Ertz, and Jordan McGee, Javonte Jean-Baptiste, and a couple of others. They are on that list, but we will see Jayden. We'll probably see BRob, probably see Bill, not Noah Brown, Luke McCaffrey, Debo, all those other guys. So as always, I'll be back to talk about the game after it happens. Make sure that you guys do hit that subscribe button, hit the like button if you enjoyed this. Go to the comment section. Let me know what you think about the BRob and the Terry situations. And as always, I'll catch you in the next one. Have a great day.